Hello and welcome back to your C# programming course. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about loops. Loops are handy sections of code that allow us to create repeatable code. This way we can save time by avoiding rewriting the same lines of code that perform the same task. There are two loops in particular that we're going to be working with: the while loop and the for loop. Now, loops work very similar to if statements. They have a condition, and as long as that condition is met, the code within the brackets will continue to run. So, for example, I'm going to be showing you a while loop. I'm going to first create an integer value, and I'm going to give it the value of 0. And then I'm going to create a while loop by simply typing in while, a set of parentheses with a condition, and I'll write while num is less than 10. And then a set of curled brackets. As long as this condition proves true, the code within the brackets will run. So for example, if I would print out num's value, like so, it will print it out repeatedly. However, there is a flaw in this code, which you'll notice when I run the program. It continuously prints 0 without an end. This is because we need to change num's value in order to make the condition prove false. Otherwise, we have a never-ending loop. And of course, that doesn't work with programs. We need to have the loop end at some point, otherwise we're going to have a bogged down program that doesn't go anywhere. One of the ways we could do this is by simply changing the value after a line of code has been written. Let's say num equals 10, like so, and we run the program. It only prints 0 once, but of course that isn't much use. We want this code to run a certain amount of times, let's say 10 times. What we'll do then is make use of an incrementer. This is when we make a value of an integer increase by 1 each time that line of code is run. Now, to create an incrementer is simple. We can simply say num equals num plus 1. And this will add 1 to num's value each time that code is run. So considering that it is in the loop, when we run this code, it will run the loop 10 times, like so, 0 to 9. But of course, there is an easier way of doing this. Instead of taking num's value and adding 1 just like this, we can simply say num plus plus, like so. And it does the exact same job, as you can see here. So we have now created a loop that saves us 10 lines of code of outputting the value of the same variable again and again. But of course you can use this loop with other conditions. So let us say that we retrieve user input and we place its value within a string. So let's say string name equals console.read line, like so. This will take a value from the user, which we'll enter in here, and in the while condition, we'll say while name is not equal to, and I'll put in stop, full capitals. Then I'll have it print name, and I'll ask the user to enter in another value to continue the loop. So let's run this program. So right now it's asking us to enter in data. I can enter in John, it prints John, Steve, and so on. But when I print stop in full caps, the program ends and stop isn't repeated as well. So we have now created a loop that will run a certain amount of times depending on the user. This is how we can use conditions to our advantage when working with loops. We need not necessarily make use of a number, but make use of data itself, and checking to see if a certain data requirement is met before ending the loop. It could be a set number of names that have been entered, in which case we would have to make use of an if statement to make sure the user is entering in a name, and so on. It's loops like these that are used in such basic but important parts of our software. For example, if you're logging into a service, entering in your email and password, it will keep checking with a while loop until a certain requirement is met. Let's say you enter in a password wrong too many times, that'll be a condition in the while loop. And when that condition is met, it will run something that says you're locked out of the service for a certain period of time. Or perhaps you're signing up to a service and you have to enter in a certain password requirement, like a set amount of characters, a number, and a character, in which case you'll have to have a while loop there checking to see the password is adequate again and again. So that is the while loop, a very useful piece of code that allows us to create conditional code repeatedly until a certain condition is met. However, we have a second loop we need to talk about, and that is the for loop. Now the for loop is far more simple, as it is just a counting loop like the first example I just showed you. This time, however, it includes the incrementer and the condition all in the same line. So we type in for, just like we would with a while loop or if statement, a parentheses as well. And within these parentheses, we're going to include the following. We first create an integer variable. Commonly we use the integer variable I within a for loop equals 0. We then put a semicolon within the parentheses after this. After this semicolon, we include the condition. Let's say I is less than 10 again. Semicolon once more. And then we include our incrementer, like so. And once more, we can have a similar piece of code, console.writeLine, and we'll print I's value, like so. And there we have a basic for loop. We run this line of code, it runs 10 times. This is the kind of loop you'll use if you have to run code a certain amount of times. A while loop you'll mainly use for special conditions, whereas a for loop is used for running code a certain amount of times. With that said, there's two more things left to discuss. One is I've introduced you to an incrementer, but we have something called a decrementer. What this will do is decrease a value by 1 by simply typing in 2 minus symbols instead of 2 plus symbols. You'll notice when I run this line of code, it is constantly minusing 1 from the value that is depicted here. And as you can see, loops run rather fast, as in these few seconds I've been speaking, it has run 100,000 times. Next, you can have loops within loops, which in many cases you'll find is very necessary for more advanced programs. It depends on the output you want to create, but you can create a set of nested loops that work together to output the right output that we need from a program. And in many cases, this will save you so many lines of code that it is very necessary to include it in your program to make it more efficient. With that said, those are the loops. I recommend practicing the loops, and I'll see you in the next video where we will be doing the final project for this course. See you then. Bye for now.